Good morning, afternoon, and evening to our listeners across the globe. My name is Ramzi Cheety. I'm your host today with the in12d podcast. It's season 2, episode 18. And in the studio with me across the invisible line, Kathy Pratt from Vermont. I'm in Montreal, by the way, and Susie sends her regards. She can't make it with us today. Kathy, we have a special guest today. Go ahead. Do you want to introduce our guest?
So special. I give credit to Melinda almost every time I open my mouth in public teaching, and I wouldn't be who I am if it weren't for Melinda Kinzie, fellow Vermonter, who used to be quite an interesting performer called Mindy K. I love that name. And now is an incredible, I want to get it right, Shamanic Sound Practitioner. And we'll talk about your sound sanctuaries. Melinda, thank you for coming and giving your time.
Oh, Kathy, it is such a great honor. And I would meet you anywhere, anything. So thank you.
Same. So you brought a couple postcards. Let's see Mindy K.
Okay. This is Mindy K. I feel like it's like I'm a time traveler. I'm introducing you to a lady I met on another timeline.
Yeah.
And that's her.
She's beautiful.
She's beautiful. Here before, it was before any celebrities or music industry people were doing that, except for punk rock people.
I didn't know if that word applied. I was describing Mindy K to Ramzi, and that's the word that popped into my head was punk. Yeah, because
I was not rock. I mean, my dad was in a punk rock band when I was a kid. And I was certainly influenced by punk rock for sure. But I was more like, there were a lot of things that are cool now that weren't cool yet then, but like burlesque, I was a burlesque dancer. I was in a burlesque company. Yep. And this whole look was more from a Vargas girl kind of place, pin up.
Yep.
My pink hair was a vision that I'd had that was a persistent vision. And when I finally gave into that vision, some things snapped into place in me, and I had that pink hair for like a long time. And I think Mindy K was on the, Tish and Snooki from Manic Panic hair dye, Manic Panic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One of the original hair dyes for the punk rockers, for the Mohawk folk. They used Mindy K as the on the hair dye card in the beauty supply stores. She was there under the little strip of pink hair to show what bubblegum pink looked like. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't see pink hair anymore. So what talk to us about, I know your parents were musicians, and then you went to New York, and now you're back in Vermont. Shamanic Sound Practitioner. What's that? Our theme, ordinary to extraordinary. How did that happen?
Well, my dad's a New Yorker. My dad's from Far Rockaway Beach, Queens. And so half of our family is like, really, really Irish and Scottish immigrants, building New York kind of thing. So New York wasn't that much of a stretch in my mind because I felt like I was from there, even though I grew up in the wilderness. And my mom wasn't from Vermont either. They were both back to land hippies. So I was like born in a bread truck in the Colorado mountains on an Indian reservation, like
For real?
during, oh yeah. Yeah. I was born on a Navajo reservation because my dad had long hair and a beard, and the other hospitals wouldn't let us in. So, it's been crazy from the beginning, I suppose. And so then we moved to Vermont, and there's a whole story about my dad was the drummer for the Cowsills, which then became the Partridge Family.
Oh.
In the 60s then, and we almost were part of the Cowsills life in California, but it became dangerous for. I'm going to try to avoid all the stories because we'd have to be here for like 100 days. But so we ended up here in Vermont, in the Northeast Kingdom, homesteading, and my parents were playing in bands, and we had a recording studio in the house, and so we had a whole music world going on in the house. But simultaneously, my mom was a spiritual seeker, a spiritual investigator in the beginning of like I guess what you would call the New Age movement in the 70s, the 60s to 70s, and 80s. And so we were in the forest. There was no neighbors. I had a pony. We had an outhouse. We were homesteading, and there was music. And then there was also bending forks with our minds and blowing holes in clouds with thoughts, and lots of conversations from a young age with my mom about Mayan symbology and using more of the brain to manifest, and a lot of crazy things like that. And then they gave me Silva mind control method for my 18th birthday. So I was using my brain to visualize workshop areas for manifesting, and programming my brain on my own from the age of 18. And then when I moved to New York City, I moved there as a dancer, and I was in an Afro-Cuban dance company there. And then I found club life, and then I found drag queens, and then I found house music. And then I was on a ride, and I got a record label job because I was working the door at clubs. I was really in the scene, in the dance music scene, but from the nightclub part. And and then I was working at record labels, at this one record label, which is then the record label that I got a deal at by accident. Did I answer that question?
Sure.
Oh, good.
Sure. Incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot going on. So Ramzi asked before, you use shamanic as a term, shamanic sound healer, so shamanic sound practitioner. Talk about that term a little bit.
Yeah. So when I completed my sound healer training with Zacciah Blackburn at the Center of Light, it was a 3-year training. It was very intense. It was a consciousness expansion training, and we were learning how to work with sound shamanically. And it was before sound healing and crystal singing bowls became mainstream. And so we were always talking about what do we call this? Do we call ourselves sound healers? What term can we use to describe what we're actually doing that is accessible to people? And now what I've found is that because sound healing is an emerging mainstream modality for in energy medicine and consciousness expansion, and people learning about frequency and how it's like we're what we used to call like emotional intelligence, like was the cutting edge to become emotionally intelligent. What's coming now is becoming vibrationally intelligent and frequency aware. And it's just coming into collective consciousness. What is frequency? What are people talking about? We used to call it vibe or like energy, but now we're like really dealing with the fact that everything is vibrating particles. And if everything's vibrating particles, then everything has a frequency. And thought affects things, sound affects things, things affect things here in this world. So the term shamanic sound healing or shamanic sound practitioner, distinguished separate from sound healing or sound healer, is the practice of using sound to be in relationship with the unseen realms, to be in relationship with it. We're not aiming at it and hoping it works, which is also totally fine. And it's not better than anything else. It's just different and needs to start being distinguished as different, where I am not a shaman. People have called me a shaman, but in the place we're in now on this planet with cultural appropriation and the wheel of karma coming around, where we have to really deal with how we've been treating the native people of all the lands on this planet. In the indigenous communities that are on the earth right now, and what we know about the roots of shamanism, even though I am doing my work all the time and I'm rigorously training and doing shadow work and doing work on myself all the time to do the work I'm doing, what it meant to be a shaman in an indigenous wisdom community was to be born into that title. You were coming from a lineage. I have my lineage. I have my mom. I'm sure that in my ancestry, I'm Irish and Scottish. So there are tongues and languages and knowings and matriarchal wisdom in my DNA that I don't know about in everyone's DNA, because we all come from a native people, every single one of us. But I don't like using a term as a white woman in America that we are also using to describe an indigenous medicine man or woman who has been born into a lineage and comes from a culture that is living in harmony with the unseen realms and in a relationship with the earth that my current culture is not doing. And so it's just a personal thing for me. I'm not really judgy of what people use as their titles, and I think it's up to each person. So I want to be really proud of whatever word I use for myself. I want to feel like, yeah, man, that's what I am. And I want to feel like, I kind of want to use that word, but I don't want to.
I agree with you. I agree with you in terms of the shaman and the name and what it is used for and what does it mean to a certain group of people. You're born into it. You cannot become it. And also the lineages that comes through the indigenous, not all of them are chosen ones. They're kind of a chosen one that become a medicine man or a medicine woman that goes and take the shape of a shaman.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to you, and I don't want you to sell yourself a bit short, but we are all indigenous, like you mentioned. We all come from the same lineage.
Yes.
Only difference between the two is that we went around and then we came back to our source. And today we're here. We kind of looped into it. So you went, I don't want to say white people, but most people who live in societies and cities and so on, we lost our way along, throughout history, and now we're going back to where we came from.
Yeah,
so
man.
that's kind of fit within where you stand today, but maybe you want to use a different term, which is fine.
Yeah.
I just wanted to understand exactly where it's coming from on
Yeah.
your end.
Yeah. The primary use of the term shamanic sound healer or shamanic sound practitioner for me is because the approach from which I am doing my work is more shamanic in nature, because I am creating a multidimensional container that my work happens in. There is an altar there. I am putting myself in another energetic body that is a higher frequency self, not instead of this body, but in addition. I am calling in guardians that I can see. And I have nations of beings that come and work with me that I see, that mostly do the work in the containers that I create. I am their assistant. I am the facilitator. I am the earthbound, human-bodied hostess of any healing that could possibly happen in the container that I dial in service to whoever has come to be in that container. So I just facilitate why ever they're there, and I don't even need to know why. I just know what my job is, and it's between them, their guides, and the realms of light. And my job is to continue to be able to see clearly and listen clearly to be able to facilitate. So there's healing work being done that I am helping to bring down to anchor and birth into the bodies, because that's also where I am here, that I've never seen before. I've never studied. Sometimes I'll read a book and I'll be like, oh, that's what they were doing. Working with DNA, we're working with cells, we're working with sacred geometry, living energies, elementals, animals, star beings, medicine men and women come in from cultures that I haven't studied. I have to ask them who they are. And I'm so honored that they come. And my practice is to get out of the way and continue to keep the work flowing through.
It's that's a good one, because you answered my second question, which I never asked. I like that. So now the follow-up from my previous question that I never asked is that, who are these beings that you are working with? Are they your guides, or do you have a name for them, or have they identified themselves as different? Are they from this earth? Who are you working with?
Mm-hmm. I am working with different nations of living energies every time. I do have some friends who are that I consider allies and work partners that I'm just beyond. I can't even talk about it without getting teary. I'm just very, very, just very honored to know and work with. And these nations are everything from frogs to fireflies to elk and all kinds of earth, nature, animals and birds and snakes, and to ancient sects of very devoted groups who have been anchoring life on this planet for a very, very long time, and groups who are assisting humanity at this time, who are not interdimensional or extra dimensional star nations. I do not really work so much with, it's my intention and my declaration that when I'm working with star beings, I'm impeccable about working with star nations that are 100% in every way in a devoted service to the human race and to our blossoming and to our divine blueprint and to our sovereignty. So there's no experimentation in my containers, and there's no questionable energetics ever on any level, on any timeline, in any way.
Okay. When did you have your first interaction or encounter with your guides?
It's a good question.
Were they with you from the day you were born?
Yeah,
Or
I'm thinking birthday, my day of birth. I'm thinking, I just recently saw in some pre-birth and birth work that I was doing on myself that I think that it's possible that there were some blessings bestowed onto me by the women that were there helping my mom give birth to me, who were First Nation, Navajo, because those songs and voices just stream right out of my mouth. And when I'm working, and I technically, it's a little bit too in my body. I can't explain how that is. And so the other day I saw that maybe that was one of the first experiences I had with a guide or a guardian. But I would say, I've been, I think all of us, if we could go back and have multidimensional glasses on, we'd probably see that our guides have been with us, the whole time, and showing up in different forms that we could access and stuff like that. But when I was in New York and I started singing in studios, recording in my recording artist career, I started having light beings show up around me in a way that was shocking. And it was very next level, and it was very fast. And I would be walking down the block to a recording studio to record something, and I'd be nervous, and it was a big producer or something, and these giant 2 or 3 story tall blue light beings would be behind me. And I'd be like, okay. And sometimes they'd come into the studio, and I'd have light holding on my shoulders, and I was very well accompanied from the beginning of the record deal stuff, in a way that was like they turned up the volume. And when I got pregnant, it started being crazy. And after the birth of my son, and he was a tiny newborn, I had a being come into my body I was sitting on my bed with him, my baby in between, like I was sitting up with my legs out. My baby's on the bed right here. And this being came into my body, and she wouldn't let me see her head, but she was red. And she told me that she was like a nanny, an intergalactic nanny for him. Like she was going to help soften his transition. And I was like, okay. And she started making sounds that were like this. Out of my hands into this little baby's body. And I was very like, oh my God, and nobody can ever know I'm doing this. Nobody can ever see. This is the weirdest thing I will ever do in my life. And his whole little body just went like he was being soothed by something. And I was like, wow. And so that lady, who I then affectionately called the Red Lady, came into my body area quite a bit. And one time I was performing at a big kind of bougie event in Soho in front of a lot of art people. And my head, I was holding the mic, and my head went, and my head was 2 or 3 feet above the mic, and my feet were like 9 or 10 feet down away from where I was looking. And I got nervous, and there were 2 or 3 voices singing out of wherever my mouth was. And I think it would have been awesome, except for I was in front of people, and I was worried I was going to fall down because I couldn't run my feet. Like I felt like, how do I get into those feet? How do I move them to stay? I'm in a costume. There's a lot of people, hundreds of people looking at me, and I cannot fall down. And that was a changing moment. I was like, there's something going on here that I need to probably address, because I'm either losing my mind or there's some spiritual thing happening to me that I need to face.
So basically, your key connection point was with your son, the red nanny. Then, of course, it started to expand into other stuff. How did you manage to integrate it into your day-to-day life? Because you're not an ordinary person. You're not going to your office and typing a few things and then leaving at night. You were a performer, so you meet a lot of people. How did that work for you? What did you do to manage, well, your 2 lives, basically? Your earthly one and your spiritual one, whereby it's actually starting to interfere with your personal life in a way.
Yeah. Well, I also noticed during that time with the Red Lady and the events that were occurring for me, that I didn't have anyone to tell anymore that could hold that space for me. I had spiritual friends. I had, always had a very rich spiritual life that I kept separate. It wasn't in all my friendships. It wasn't the theme of my life. It was an undercurrent of who I am. And I had friends there, but I started realizing I have no one I can talk to about this. I don't have even my wisest spiritual friends. I can tell them, and all they can say is like, whoa, wow, what are you going to do? Like, that was kind of it. And the more I felt like that, and I was getting afraid. And by the time I gave birth to my second, or I got pregnant with my second child, my daughter Magnolia, it was increasing. I was shown who she was before she was born. I was being guided about who she was going to be, her health, all kinds of things. And I was like, I got to get home to Vermont. I got to go home to Vermont. I'm going to have to just go home to Vermont. And I also recognized, because I was 40 with my second kid, I was an older mom. I recognized that I needed a teacher. And there had been times in my life before where I'd been over my head and I needed a teacher. And I recognized that. And I was like, I need to go home to Vermont. I need dirt roads. I need peepers and fireflies. And I need a teacher. So that's what I did. And I left my entire life in New York, and I left that whole career, and it was really hard. And I moved home to Vermont with 2 babies, and a husband who was my producer, who I had a down-tempo electronica band at that point that was doing quite well in the city. I had toured as Dido's background singer. I'd done a bunch of stuff, and I had to choose which life. And I chose the spiritual path life. And it was really hard. It was dark night of the soul that continued for many years. And everything that I had, everything that wasn't aligned with that path either died or crumbled in my hands. And I found a teacher. I found a couple teachers.
And you were the one that I found when I was afraid.
Oh.
So yeah, lots of, I'm so glad. I don't remember how I found you. I guess at a sound sanctuary. I remember you told me a story one time about reading, I don't know if it was with Sunny or Magnolia, a children's book, and it was about touching the bark on a tree.
Oh.
And you scoop them up and you say, hey, well, let's go out and do that thing. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't find a tree within reach in the city, and that was one of the last straws. I think that's so beautiful that it was maybe the trees of Vermont were hailing Melinda back.
Yes, they were. Through the ground.
For me, I think it was for me so that I could find you. I'm really glad about that. So you talk about frequency, and you made music. You made music as sound as music, and now you use sound for healing. How do those, clearly they're different?
Yeah. Well, the funniest thing is that when I found my teacher, I was not looking for a sound teacher. I was looking for a shamanic teacher. I was thinking, how do I ground and gain some tools around working with these beings, and working with nature, because nature was in there, and light and all of this stuff I'd learned from my mom. And my deepest love was for nature. And I'm having star being relationships and Pleiadian events, and and I wanted a shaman. I wanted like a new agey star being shaman teacher guy or girl, lady, person. And so I looked and I found Tom Kenyon online, who's like a master sound channel of the Hathor beings and other beings. And I was terrified by his sound recordings. I had never heard anything like it. And it sounded like whales and someone crying to me. And I was like, oh, that is just, I don't even know what I think about that. Meanwhile, now that is 100% what I do. But then I was like, I don't even know. That's so powerful and terrifying. And, and then I found this other teacher, of a shamanic teacher named Zacciah Blackburn. And I was like, yeah, that guy. And then, but he did sound too, but I didn't want the sound part. And then it turned out Zacciah was in Vermont. And I was like, what? He's in Vermont? I'm in Vermont? I'm going to go find that guy. And I asked Zacciah if he would let me train with him. Like, in my mind, I wanted like a Luke Skywalker Yoda situation. And I was like, basically, will you be my Yoda? And I'll mop the floors of your house or whatever and be like young Luke Skywalker. And he was like, no, you can come to my trainings. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, but I don't want the sound part. And he was like, too bad. Sorry. Good luck finding any shamanic training that doesn't involve sound. Good luck with that.
Which is what I was saying, right? I'm like, I'm not going to be a bowl person, and I'm not, but everything you talk about is exactly what I do, what Ramzi does, what
Right.
Susie does. It's all the same.
It's not separate.
Right.
The real study of sound is the study of shamanism. It's inescapable. It's just that we have this relationship to that word that has it sectioned out in this little box.
Right.
But when you really study what sound is, you have to study what love is. And then you have to study what this whole place is. And then you have to study what you are. And then what is your relationship to the whole fucking thing? And then you're dealing with sound.
And I was just reading to a group yesterday. The same goes for color. Me being the visual person.
Yeah, because color
is the same thing. And it's about frequency and how it hits the object and what bounces off and what goes through in our eyes and the whole, it's like,
yes.
Oof.
And in the ancient temples, like for instance, in the ancient temples of Hathor and the Hathor beings in particular, and any other star being race or intergalactic race that's assisting us in our energy medicine blossoming, the medicines are color, sound, and essential oils. It's like smells, little job, these jobs, these eyeballs, and these guys, and this guy, and then the pineal gland in the middle of everybody over there. And it's the sensory and extrasensory capacities that we have that give us our relationship to this whole place.
Mm-hmm. That's it. We're done.
Bye. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you later. Thank you very much.
I love it because it's exactly what I'm working on right now. And Ramzi, with the taste, you're working on it also.
Ooh.
So fascinating.
It's important.
Ooh,
yeah.
So what we're eating, right?
What we're eating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So everything has a vibration. It's just you have to be in tune with everything around you. We had a show a couple of weeks ago and we were talking about plants and stuff like that. I had a plant that a friend of mine overwatered. I didn't know what was happening. I just came back and I saw it like half dead, Mm-hmm. And I go, okay, I'm a Reiki healer. Let me just put my hands around and try to figure out what is happening. And all I could hear is that I'm drowning. I go, What am I thinking about? Like, really? And I just pushed it aside. And then the second day, I kept on hearing, I'm drowning, I'm drowning. So I took the plant. It's 2 pots inside each other. So I lifted it, and it was like half of it filled with water.
Ah.
So I had to dry it out in the sun and make sure that, it doesn't get watered again for like at least a month and a half, and so on. So all these frequencies are around us. It's just, how do you quiet your mind to pick up on everything that is around you? And I'm sure you have your own ritual that you do in order to connect and heal someone, if I'm not mistaken. I know after a while it becomes like normal. You don't even think about it. It's like, yeah, here I am, the healer.
I don't set out to heal someone. My understanding of what makes a healer, or the description that gave me access to using that word in reference to myself, was that the root of the word heal or healer is whole. And the root of that is holy. So you know that you're a healer if you can see the holy in a thing or a being or a place. If that's the glasses that you wear, if that's a capacity that you hold, then you are a healer. And it's another excellent distinction of what shamanic healing really is, because we don't go in to fix. We anchor to what doesn't need to be fixed, to that which can never be altered, to the original blueprint and the wholeness and the divinity of every being, of everything. And so I sing into that. I work with that, and the universe works with that. And through, whether they're streaming rivers of light through some level of a light body or person's being, or they're doing some alchemical transformation with sacred geometry shapes and the living energy of rose quartz, or whether it's a past life regression into some work in Egypt that this client did, I'm there for it. I'm there for it. My job is to anchor into the light that they are, that they were before they came here, and they will be when they leave here. And that we're in the business right now on planet Earth of birthing down and taking up more embodiment into that aspect of self while in the flesh. And that's what I think is going on planet Earth right now, is not leaving the body to be in that self, but being in the body and expanding into that light body, Christed, also very real self that is. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, I do have a process before I work, like before I do a one-on-one session or a group event or something. And I teach that process in my mentorship called the Path of Light mentorship program. And it's not a sound healing course. It is a prerequisite to my sound healer training. My sound healer training, I'm calling it a modality, the systems that are developing through my work, called SoNar Sound Healing Technique. And that's what my sound healing technique is called. And sonar, because that's using sound to navigate the unseen. So the Path of Light mentorship, that's a prerequisite to my sound healer training, is a 13-week virtual course. I mean, you work with me, we're on Zoom, on how to create containers that you can feel and be and know and be in your own private relationship with the reality of them and the guardians that come, but not as protection, as precision, dialing in the frequency that you are in service to, the core signature frequency of you, what your soul came here to do and be, who you really are, and on a level that makes you cry, like that makes you weep at the truth of your own innocence and true desire to love or help or build or something. And we do that work. We discover what that truth is about each person. And then standing in that, a whole other light body is possible, because you're standing in your station. You found your spot where the light of that can only shine through a person who's standing in their true core signature frequency, purity of their heart. There's a light that shines there on this planet, and it can't shine anywhere else that way, only where you are when you're doing that. And when you erect a container from there, wow, forget about it. You're a walking temple. And if you know how to do that in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, the amount of sacred anchoring and frequency potential wherever you are is unfathomable currently. So I do that. I have a really quick system. I step into it, literally into like a unitard. That's my higher self body. I make sure I got it on. I have a container. I can see it. I know what shape it is. There are guardians there holding that frequency for me, so I don't have to do it. And only things that are in alignment with that can enter. And all things that are in alignment with that are welcome. Who want to work with me in that mission. But nothing else can enter there because of the laws of frequency. So sometimes I'm tuning into like these teeny little things and singing the song of tiny little things. And sometimes they pull me back and I can hear the song of the whole thing. So,
Can you see why I worked with this lady? I mean, like, right, I feel in my spine is aligning and I'm feeling more powerful, right? Just listening to you.
oh,
Yeah,
thanks, Kathy Pratt.
it's beautiful.
So well explained.
Oh, thank you, Eric.
So well explained.
Mm.
It's beautiful.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't have any questions because I'm like doing the thing.
We're doing it. Yeah. You can't talk about it without doing it. That's when you know it's good stuff. Yeah.
So if anybody wants to learn this technique, which is an awesome technique, MelindaKinzie.com is scrolling at the bottom. Go check it out. I would like to take maybe half a minute or a minute to listen to one of your sound healing. I think it's called the Elk.
It's Blue Elk, I think you're going to play.
Yeah, Blue Elk. So I'm just going to put it on for a sec.
Cool.
And let's listen to it. Oh, here it is. I don't want to turn it off, but we have the show. Oh my God, it vibrates at a level that is all the way to the cellular level of your body. I feel my insides were moving and realigning themselves in a way that is, I have not felt like that before. Wow. Wow.
And I want to say it's my voice, but at that time I was working with this blue elk tribe, and they were elk that were made of blue light, and they would sing, they would jump into people's bodies through my sound and carry the fabric of higher dimensional realities into people's bodies. So you hear me singing and you feel those things, but what's traveling in it is my the energies I'm assisting.
And here's the thing. If you're lucky enough to live anywhere where you can get to Melinda, she's about to do her sound sanctuaries outside. And what happens is that these events, what Melinda's talking about, animals coming in, different tribes, the elements, we stand up and you can hardly stand. And then we have to get ready to drive our car. And then by the time you put your shoes on and you're walking out to your car, then somebody next to you says, "Did you see the giant snake?" And yeah, you saw the giant snake too. Well,
Yeah.
This stuff is real and it changes you. So do it, because it's incredibly special. Yeah. Is there a question in there? No, just my admiration, I guess.
Thank you, Kathy Pratt.
Well, you rephrased it well, I think. And also, we had a question from the listener, which I believe it is there a difference when listening with earbuds or speakers? I personally feel that earbuds are more effective because it goes directly into your eardrums and kind of like blocking other sounds around you.
And
also there's
your brain. Right?
Thank you. Yes.
You're probably working on that coherence kind of stuff, the science piece of it all at one time.
But not while driving, Eric.
Not while driving.
No.
Oh my God.
Yes, it does take you into a different realm while you're listening to it. That's what I felt in those 2 minutes that we listened to.
Yeah.
It just transports you somewhere else.
Yeah. Eric, if you are in an environment where you'd like a peaceful flow, where you'd like to lift the energy, which I'm seeing you're in Hawaii, so maybe you probably don't need that. But if you ever wanted that, having it on speakers in the spaces is I've done it like that just to keep the angels singing around. It's nice. And the other thing on my website, the only other recording is the light activation Sophia Returns recording, which is a full body. It's a little bit like a mini sacred sound sanctuary where I guide you into a relaxed state. And the Holy Sophia comes and works on the body in that one. And that's an extraordinary practice as well on the website there.
Yeah. The website is, sorry, it's noted in the YouTube video, so you can find it over there. And it's also for listeners online. It's melindakinzie.com.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
No, do you want to talk about your upcoming events?
Sure. Yes. For the summer here in Vermont, we're doing several, I call them sacred sound pod sanctuaries, because everybody gets
the most fun ever.
They're really fun.
Everybody's in a pod and there are lights and the sun goes down.
It's fun. And I have a really good Bluetooth sound system and a little head mic. So the sound, it's as good as we could get with having the sound really go into your bodies, even though we're outside. And you get a little mosquito net personal pop-up tent pod. And you bring all your snuggly things.
So
and
it's like you're 4 years old.
Yes.
It's the coolest thing ever. Yeah.
And we are going to be over in New York, across the lake from where we are in Vermont here, which is fun because if you're in Vermont, you could take a ferry ride and get an ice cream on the other side and then go to the spot where we're doing our thing. And the other one is at Shelburne Farms, which is like a fantasy, like Lord of the Rings, rolling green hills and giant Victorian barns kind of place.
Over the lake.
It's just out of control. It's like Vermont's Versailles a little bit, only not curated gardens. It's like wildflowers and cows. And we're on this landing, like what I think is like a UFO landing pad there called Sheep's Meadow. That's like a very naturally flat, very soft grass, high elevation spot. It's very yummy. So those are the outdoor summertime events. All the information is on my website. In the fall, I'm starting a mentorship, a Path of Light mentorship that's open to all people who are aligned with that work and called to that work.
Is that in person or that's
on Zoom? That's
excellent.
Every Sunday, 2 hours on Zoom every Sunday for 13 weeks. And we cover a lot of ground. But I've done it quite a few times and the work has become very accessible. And as you know, Kathy, like once you get in there with your multidimensional capacity that you own, then the work can help with whatever you're doing.
Everything.
Whatever you're doing.
Travel, anything.
Being a painter, being a dentist, being a Reiki person, leading plant ceremonies, anything that you do, it's in harmony with all wisdom cultures and respects all practices you might already have, as long as they're in service to what's good, to life. I'm in the Eastern time zone, Eric.
Eastern, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the sound healer training, I just did my first round of the level 1 SoNar Sound Healing Technique training at this beautiful retreat center here in Vermont called Meta Earth. It's all sacred land. And I had 6 beautiful, powerful students. And I just got to watch how this works, how it carried them into their power as souls on a light mission on Earth. So I'm going to be offering that more and more, and hopefully really having a school So I want to thank you guys for inviting me on here. Thank you so
We want to
much.
thank you for joining us. I just want to read Eric, we all feel like Yoda's in the beginning, a Jedi looking for Yoda.
Oh.
I'm glad you joined us. You can find Melinda online, and her some of the music are for free. Do listen to them. They are phenomenal. I listen to them, and I will definitely be listening more to them. And hopefully Melinda will get a chance to meet somewhere in Vermont, New York at one point in time with Kathy.
I would love
yeah, I would like to thank you for being here with us today. That's been a great honor. Thank you for everything that you do. Kathy, any last word?
Thank you. Thanks, Melinda. Thanks, Ramzi. Yeah.
Thank you. And with that, we end our show today. Thank you so much for being with us.